Crazy story. Story time. Story time. So, I found out I was pregnant in February. It was like right before Valentine's Day. Um, my symptoms were like I was moody, extremely emotional. I, I had like pregnancy fog brain. Like I went to my son's bus stop an hour early than I was supposed to be there. But I had no idea because I woke up from a nap because I was really tired and I was like, oh my God, I was rushing. I looked at the time, it clearly said 2 o'clock, but in my mind, 2 o'clock meant to go to the bus stop. When usually I'm getting ready to go to the bus stop around 3:20. So I got up, I run to the bus stop and I'm waiting and I'm like, gosh, there's nobody here. It's like 2:20, the bus doesn't usually pull up until about 3:40. And I'm like, oh my, at that point, I didn't know I was pregnant, but I was like, oh my God, I'm losing my mind. Like, it's happening. I'm losing my mind. Like the little bit of marbles that I do have left are out in the atmosphere and I'm losing it. I was like, oh my God, I started to panic. I felt embarrassed. No one knew, but I was feeling embarrassed in myself. I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe I really did that. I cannot believe I really just showed up at the bus stop an hour early, panicking, thinking that I missed the bus. After that, I was like, there's something wrong. Like, because this was clearly there was something going on in my mind. And I was like, okay, I need to take a test because there's something wrong. Something is not right with me mentally. So I went to the dollar store, of course, went to the Dollar Tree and got a pregnancy test. And it came back with a faint line. So I was like, okay, maybe I'm pregnant. So days prior to that too, I was crying at everything. I made a video for my a Valentine's Day video promoting my the diamond salt, and in the video, I don't know if anyone, but you can see like my face. You can clearly, well, you probably cannot see, but I had been crying because I don't know. I've just been crying because I was so emotional. And my boobs, which, I have a little cleavage, have green lines going through them. So they were like engorged. So that was that. And then the whole thing of me losing my mind. And that's when I was like, okay, let me just take a test. So anyway, it comes back with a faint line. And I'm like, okay, I'm pregnant. So I scheduled an appointment to see my GYN, which was a new GYN. And we'll go into another story about why I got a new GYN in another time. So I went to her and, I chose a place, that were black people. I wanted to see a black nurse because I had prior experiences that were I almost died. So, but my life in the hands of some other people. So I was scared. So I was like, let me try to find my own. So this way maybe I can trust them more. So I go to the GYN. It's my husband and my son is with me. And I'm going to get the pregnancy confirmed. So I take the test. They come back and they're like, she's like, oh, well, the line was so faint, I really can't say right now. I can't tell you whether or not this is a good pregnancy or a bad pregnancy, so we're going to take your levels and then you're going to come back in a few more days and we'll, let you know. So they take the levels come back. She's like, well, the levels are kind of low, so we're going to redo it. And you're going to come back in another few days and we're also going to schedule you for an ultrasound. So I'm still kind of like, concerned because I've had miscarriages in the past. So anyway, so I go to the doctor and the ultrasound tech does the ultrasound. So I think by that time I was supposed to be about 8 weeks or 9 weeks or something like that. And she's like, well, how many weeks are you supposed to be? When was your last period? And I'm like, I told her when my last period was. And she was like, well, it's not really adding up. Like, I don't really see a heartbeat. I just see a yolk sac. So I'm like, I'm already feeling like the demise. Like, okay, all right, you only see a yolk sac. It's not adding up because I know when my last period was, and I know by this time I should be this many weeks. So if you're saying that, I think she was saying that I was like 7 weeks and I'm supposed to be like 9 weeks. And I'm like, oh, that don't add up. Like, okay, well then something's definitely not right. So the doctor comes in and she's like, well, we can't tell, again, we can't tell whether or not this is going to be a good pregnancy or a bad pregnancy. We have to keep watching it and so on and so forth. So I'm like, this don't sound right. Usually when you go to the doctor and that line pop up, you're pregnant. You know what I'm saying? So, and then the ultrasound tech talking about they didn't see nothing but a yolk sac, no heartbeat. I'm like, I should prepare myself to have a miscarriage. So that was Thursday. That was on a Thursday. Now, on a Sunday, I started bleeding. And it wasn't like a normal, like, it wasn't like spotting. I was hemorrhaging. I was bleeding. It was gushing out. So I went to the bathroom and I'm like, it's gushing, and I'm passing huge clots, like the size of my hand. And I was like, that's it. I had a miscarriage. Although there was no cramping. I didn't have any cramping. It was just a lot of bleeding. So I was like, maybe it's early. I'm not going to really feel no cramps. So I had a miscarriage. And that's what I wiped. Whatever. So, I was like, you know what? I don't even feel like going to the doctor. I was, down. I was depressed or whatever. I was like, you know what? It is what it is. It's not meant to be. So I told my husband was there. He was like, you sure you don't want to go to the hospital? I was like, no, because I don't feel like dealing with people. I don't want to call that doctor. That doctor was basically telling me I was going to have a miscarriage. So I don't want to, I don't want no one to rub it in right now. So the next day was a Monday and I wasn't feeling well. I was down. I was moody and everything. And, my husband was like, yo, you should go to the hospital. And I'm like, no, I don't know what it is. When you have a miscarriage, you wait to get your period or whatever. And it seemed like I passed everything because I was clots. So he was like, he convinced me to go to the hospital. So we go to the hospital. And I told them that I had a miscarriage. And I just wanted to make sure that everything was okay. So they give me Percocets. I'm on a perk. I'm on Percocets. They take me to the ultrasound or whatever, do the ultrasound transvaginally. And, I come back, I'm all out of it. I'm woozy and everything. I'm like, oh, whatever. I'm on a perk, riding a wave. And the doctor comes in and he's like, okay, so you're 9 weeks and 4 days. And I'm like, 9 weeks and 4 days? I'm like, no, I would have been 9 weeks and 4 days. I had a miscarriage. He's like, no, we see the baby in there with a heartbeat. And I'm like, no, I was just at the doctor 4 days ago and the only thing was a yolk sac. In 4 days, you mean to tell me there's a baby in there with a heartbeat? And they just told me that I wasn't even measuring up. I'm not understanding. I was literally like, no, I wouldn't accept it because the day before I was like, I already accepted I had a miscarriage. I was like, all right, I'll accept that and let me move on with my life. So now they're telling me, no, I didn't have a miscarriage and that my baby is 9 weeks and 4 days and has a heartbeat. And I wasn't comprehending. I'm like, no, you're wrong. I had a miscarriage. He's like, no, you're pregnant. I'm like, holy shit, what? Okay, now I know what I saw. I know what I experienced. This is just weird. It's not adding up. So my husband was happy. He was like, yeah, you're still pregnant. So we go home or whatever. And the doctor's like, listen, just, we're going to put you on bed rest. Don't do much. You know what I'm saying? Don't lift anything heavy. Don't do this. Don't do that. Pretty much just rest. Excuse me. So, oh my God, I'm already 11 minutes, 12 minutes into this video. Good God. So, so I want to rush this. So, 2 weeks go past, and it happened again. I started hemorrhaging again. Like, it wasn't a period flow. Period builds up. This was just like it was literally like pouring. So I just had picked up my son from the bus stop. I called my husband. He was at work. I was like, listen, I'm going back to the hospital. So I get my son. We go back to the hospital. They tell me the same thing again, that the baby is fine. And I'm like, yo, why am I bleeding like this? Why am I bleeding and passing class like this? So they wanted to see if it was a subchronic hemorrhage on my placenta or uterus or something like that, and it came back negative. So the doctor this time, last time I had an Asian doctor, this time I had an African doctor at the emergency room, and he was like, oh, it could be your period. That doesn't make any sense. Now, I've heard of women talking about they got their period on their pregnancy or whatever, but I always side-eyed that, like, you got your period when you was pregnant. That doesn't make any sense. So he's like, oh, it can be a period or whatever. I'm like, well, that's a lot of period. Now, mind you, okay, I left the hospital. I was still spotting. I spotted for 3 weeks. 3 weeks. I spotted for 3 weeks. So for 3 weeks, I was still in the balance. Like, is this, am I going to have a miscarriage? Am I not going to have a miscarriage? Like, what is going on here? I never heard of anyone experiencing anything like this. And, I was scared. So I thought I lost my baby twice. And I didn't. I did all that bleeding, passing clots and everything, and I did not lose a baby. I am 5 months pregnant right now with a healthy baby girl. By the grace of God, my baby is still with me, and I am 5 months pregnant. So I'm telling this story to tell other women because I don't know if anyone else has ever experienced this, but to give someone hope that you can go through some traumatic shit while you're pregnant. You can bleed while you're pregnant. Bleeding. And I'm talking about not a normal period like, oh, I have some implantation bleeding. No, I ain't never heard of no implantation bleeding like that. That was straight up bleeding. If my husband was here, because he's seen it. He was in the bathroom with me. He's seen everything. So, and he took pictures of the clots, which I'm not going to post on here because that's just graphic. I just want to give other people out there hope, women that have suffered from miscarriages like I have, just, you never know. If you think that you have suffered a miscarriage, do not just ignore it. Go to the doctor and find out for sure, because I could have been like, no, I ain't going to the doctor, and just went on partying and everything, drinking and carrying on, and been pregnant the entire time and didn't even know. And that would have been a disaster. So I'm glad my husband convinced me to go to the hospital, because that's what I did, and I found out that my baby was fine. Twice. So that's story time for today. And those doctors, I dropped them. I got a brand new doctor. Those women that I went to, horrible. I ended up with the exact opposite. An older white male who is amazing, might I say, and his energy was amazing and everything. Those other women I went to, they were horrible. Their energy was horrible. They made me feel as if, this pregnancy wasn't going to be successful, which led me to automatically conclude that I already had a miscarriage. So choose the energy. Choose good energy. Go in there and feel the vibe. If someone gives you a good vibe, flow with it until they show you anything different. So that's all I have to say, guys. Subscribe, because I have plenty of more stories to share. All right?